Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mother Days. I'm Teresa Palmer.
And I'm Sarah Wright Olsen. Hi, Daisies.
Hi.
We have someone that we love so dearly. Everybody just get ready to relax and get in your body because this woman that we have today is just so magical on our show. It's Christy Baskauskas. Others might know her as Christy Dawn from Christy Dawn, the brand. And Teresa and I, you guys follow us, and I've been on this love fest journey together. You know that Teresa and I are massive fans of Christy and her brand, and just like the beautiful love and light she brings to the world. And she also, the brand honors Mother Earth in this amazing way. And when I think of when people now are saying regenerative cotton, regenerative agriculture, when I think of that, I think of you, because you really were the first that I saw
pioneer.
Somebody the pioneer bringing this forward. The regenerative revolution, as you guys, coined term. I would love for you to take us back and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and we'll get into all of that with the brand. But just let's intro you to all of our daisies.
Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys so much, and the support is it means so much to me. So thank you for having me. I guess I'll start with kind of where I grew up and just how I got here. So I grew up in a really small town in Northern California, and I grew up on 10 acres in the middle of nowhere in this town called Placerville. And
Heaven.
it's basically where you stop for gas on your way to Lake Tahoe.
Oh,
yes.
Love that. Okay, great. Perfect.
Where is that? I'm well. And growing up there for me, it was really beautiful. For my other siblings, it was harder because it was a different transition for them. But from the city where I was born in the Bay Area to move to a town like Placerville was very shocking for my siblings. And for me, it was I felt like it was an invitation from spirit to be you're supposed to be here. Because I felt so held in that container, just being surrounded by nature. And I honestly can't imagine what it would have been like growing up in the city. Because my childhood is really such a big part of who I am today. So I grew up in this really small town. There was no shopping anywhere. It was 45 minutes to the nearest mall. My mom and I would go shopping at vintage, or I guess really there are thrift stores there. There's not vintage stores there. And we would come home and recreate all of my clothing, from t-shirts to jackets to dresses. And that kind of started my love for creating unique pieces for myself. And then as far as the kind of honoring Mother Earth element of my work today is I feel where I grew up, as a child, I was really held by the land there. And I really sought refuge with the land that I grew up on, because my childhood was so unstable and dysfunctional with my mother's addiction. So it was it's just been this wild kind of realizing how much my mom has taught me from a very beautiful perspective, and also a very unconscious kind of dysfunctional perspective as well. But she definitely planted the seeds for this love of creating unique pieces to wear and share my personality through what I'm wearing. Cut to, I was 17. I started modeling when I was 14. When I was 17, I had a long-term boyfriend, small town girls, that's what you do. You get married to your high school sweetheart, you have babies really young, you work at the local whatever, and you start a family. And I was genuinely that's probably what I'm going to do. And my friend had moved to LA and went to FITM. And I remember she came back home and she was like, what are you doing? Actually, what are you doing here? You're so smart and talented and fun. You're really just going to marry your high school sweetheart? and like become a real estate agent and like model just for a little while? And I'm like, yeah, why not? And she was like, no, just come to LA with me. It's going to be so fun. Like, I just want you to like get out of this small town. And I had lived in San Francisco for a little bit modeling, and I was like, this is fun, but I always found myself going back to like the boyfriend in the comfort zone. And so I went to LA. It was so fun. I had the best time ever. I was like, what is happening down here?
Oh my gosh. Another world.
I like came back home and was like, I'm going to move to LA. And I was living with my boyfriend at the time. And I remember it was like a scene out of a movie, and a movie that you guys have probably been in.
His little heart. Yes, his little heart.
Yeah. And I was just like, the car was packed down below. My girlfriends were in the car. And I was just like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I'm moving to LA. And like got in the car and we drove to LA. And that night we went to a Flaunt magazine party. And I remember I was like 7, I don't even think I was 18 years old yet. And we like snuck in through the back. We like she knew a few friends that worked the party, snuck in through the back, and like ended up having the best night ever, flirting with like so many celebrities. Like, I mean,
yes.
It was beyond. I was like,
which ones?
What?
I know. I'm like, who was it?
I mean, there's a lot. Actually, Teresa, we have a common.
Oh, do we have some dicks in common?
Ooh, we love this.
We totally do. But maybe
oh my God, Rachel Bilson and I, we were on a podcast together, and
they have so many.
We have a number of dudes we dated. We both dated, and she was like, "Dicks in common." I was like, "Oh my God, I love that term. That's so funny." After the recording, we're going to swap all the stories.
Yes, we have to. But yeah, I remember just like my mind kind of like opened up to this other world that's like exciting and stimulating. And I was so just like in I don't want to say a trauma response, but just like, it was so comforting to be in what I knew and just like go that easy route. And I'm just so grateful to my friend who really like encouraged me to get out of the nest and like seek something new and exciting. And it was so fun and also just like so crazy. I don't regret a minute of it, but it was such a different person than I am now, that I'm like, who was that girl?
Well, you needed to have that experience, that release. That I had such a similar thing. I left my first love, sobbing, crying, like, am I doing the right thing? Moved to LA at a similar age, had the most fun ever and all the parties and kissing all the hot boys. And like, it was the best. And yeah, again, so different from who I am now, but very glad I had that experience.
Yeah, so wild. So yeah, I moved to LA, had a blast, lived with like 4 girls in a 1-bedroom apartment, went out partying every other night. Like, we loved clothes. We loved shopping. I'm an Aquarius. I love this sense of being unique and like having a very unique expression. And my love for buying thrift was still there. And I would take these pieces to my tailor, my local tailor, and we would make these dresses. And they were always dresses. Like, dresses were definitely the thing that I was like, oh, this would be so fun to do X, Y, and Z to. And I would take it to my tailor in Santa Monica. And he was this older, like Japanese man, probably like 85 years old. And he had the best eye. And he would pin it and tuck it and do all the things. And I'd pick it up a week later and it'd be like a whole new dress.
Wow.
And I would get so many compliments on set because I was modeling every day. And yeah, it was just so cool to get this recognition from people that were in the industry. And I didn't really like think about it until one day I came home from a photo shoot and I was like, it would be so fun to create my own dress company. And my boyfriend, who's now my husband and the CEO of Christy Dawn, he was like, I'll help you. And like turned around in his desk chair, like swung around, was like, I'll do it with you. I'll help you. And then 3 months later, we had Christy Dawn and I was pregnant.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. So we basically I birthed both things at the same time, and Otis helped birth the brand. But yeah, it was a really just that whole timeline just happened so fast. And we're moms, we know it's like still really fast, but yeah, it's just like amazing how the pieces just kind of kept clicking with not a lot of like intention. Like I never really thought that I would have a dress company. That wasn't like I'm moving to LA and having a clothing company.
Yeah.
But I think when things are really guided by inspiration, then that's when they really land.
That's exactly
100%.
right. We were just talking about that before we got on. When you fall into alignment with like your truest self, opportunities just start cracking open and coming your way. It's amazing. That's what sounds like it happened.
Yeah, it did. And everything like really has rolled out so smoothly. Obviously, like it's been 10 years now of having Christy Dawn. And when we started, it was so different. We started by using dead stock fabric, and mostly because we didn't have the money to invest in like full yards of fabric and creating like collections for wholesale. We wanted to start small, and really like that was the intention of it, is like, I have $20,000 to invest in this company that I don't know. At the time, I was like, this is just a hobby. Let's see how it goes. And so we invested in dead stock, and it was amazing. And as we grew, we realized like, oh, whoa, the feedback from our community is like, they love this. And it's actually really good for the planet in the sense that we're taking other people's scraps and turning it into these beautiful, like heirloom, one of a kind or 10 of a kind pieces. And then, as we grew even more, we were like, okay, like we're evolving as humans, and the business has to evolve too. And it just is this natural, gradual evolution of both. We just sort of realized like, okay, like as good as that is, what if we took it a step further? And what if we actually like we're in right relationship with the fabric? Because right now we don't know where the fabric comes from.
Right.
We don't know how it's dyed. We don't know how the people are getting treated who are actually making the fabric or dyeing the fabric. And also like a lot of the dead stock fabric we were using had a lot of synthetic fabrications in it. So we were like, what would that look like? And then my husband, who studies and used to study a lot with Taita in Colombia, he works with plant medicine, ayahuasca, and he would have this reoccurring vision of the earth speaking to him and saying like, you're going to have a farm with your family, and not like an average farm. You're going to have like a big, beautiful farm, and you're going to grow your cotton for your clothing. And he'd come home and be like, I don't know what this means. Like,
oh, wow.
And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. Like,
I'm like, I know what it means, guys.
yeah, now we know what it means.
Now we know.
Totally. And so he would go and have these like really beautiful visions. And they were also really hurtful visions. Like he would see how the chemicals in the factories would go and stream down into the rivers and then go into the plants. And he would like, in that world of plant medicine, like you really get to have access to these visions. They feel so real. And so he was just like, what I'm seeing is terrifying. And we don't know what we're actually doing by buying this dead stock. And it's been great, but like, let's take it a step further. So yeah, we had this day where I was like, well, yeah, I mean, if fiber comes from a farm, like we grow cotton, we've got to be able to grow cotton in a way that's reciprocal and regenerative. But like, who in the hell's doing that? How are we going to do that? And, and energetically, it was like, I remember when we started Christy Dawn, I used to like pick up shirts from Gap or Old Navy or whatever that I just had in my closet. And I started to really look at them differently and be like, oh, like there's slave labor, like there's slavery stitched into clothing. Like I'm just such a sensitive being now that like that stuff does impact me now. And similar to food, like it's the same thing, like the energetic signature of bad food, we feel it. And we're lucky enough to have organic food. And so the clothing that we make is similar in the sense that like the energetic signature of our clothing at Christy Dawn is just different.
It's suffering free. I always say suffering free. I'm like that with my food too. I'm like suffering free. I just want suffering free. Yeah. Oh my gosh, how beautiful.
Yeah. So now we're on this journey, and we're growing our own cotton in partnership with Nishant and Oshadi, our partners in India. And even the way that we found Nishant was just so kismet and so aligned by the divine that I'm just like, you cannot make this stuff up. And I'll share, and I'll just keep it short because it's so important to hear. But so basically we like had this realization, and then Otis starts Googling like regenerative cotton farms in California. Doesn't find anything, but he gets to this site where Rebecca from Fibershed, she is a big advocate for regenerative farming. And so he reaches out to Rebecca and he's like, hey, Rebecca, I'm looking to partner with a farm and grow regenerative cotton for our clothing company. If you know anyone, can you send them our way? And she's like, hey, Otis, like I have no idea who's doing that in LA or in California, but if anything, comes up, then I'll make sure to send it out. She said, but I do have this amazing person that's been working with me. I can no longer have her. Like, I think you should meet her. So we end up taking her right hand. Her name was Marin, and she jumps on as our director of regenerative.
I remember Marin.
Yeah. And she's like this young, brilliant, beautiful woman. And she comes on the team and she's like, all right, we're going to figure this out. 3 days later, a man in Erode, India named Nishant is listening to a podcast from Fibershed of Rebecca. And he guesses her email and says, hey, Rebecca, I'm looking for a brand to collaborate with on an organic farm. I live in India. I want to start this project. I don't know how to do it unless I have a brand to back me. And because
I have goosebumps.
Oh my goodness.
So she connects us and she's like, you're never going to believe this. Like, whatever you guys are doing is crazy. So she connects us. We start talking to Nishant, and we really just like start to explore what that looks like. And, with the help of some of our friends that are in the regenerative ag area, like they kind of guided us, and we'd ask them questions all the time, and they'd share, and then we'd share with Nishant, and then he'd share. And then eventually we like landed on 4 acres that we could start with. And the farm was a sugarcane farm that was an extractive sugarcane farm. So it had chemicals and pesticides and all the things to grow sugarcane. And basically, like in regenerative ag, you normally wouldn't till the soil, but in this case, the land was so devoid of life that we had to. And so like what I love about the regenerative way is that there's always a way. And it's not like this definitive process. It's like, what is the earth asking of you, and how can you provide, and how will she respond? And usually, like when you treat the earth well, we've seen that she will give you this amazing gift in return. And that's really been what it's been for us since the beginning. So yeah, we started with 4 acres, and it's just been this exploratory thing. And, I think the coolest thing about what we're doing is that we're holding the weight of this project as a brand, and brands don't do that. They buy the product after the farmer has carried the weight of a flood or a pestilence and all the things. And for us, we're like, let's invest it from literally the ground up. Like, let's invest in the salaries of the farmers. Let's buy the tractors. Let's get the wormy juice and the compost going. Let's do the circular water system. Like, we are buying and investing in that process. And it's been a beautiful, challenging, all of it process along the way. But now we have 88 acres of cotton, and we use almost all of it for our collection. So we're like a almost fully farm to closet company.
That is unbelievable. I mean, I knew parts of that story. I didn't know the full story, but like, I think it just shows, because we talk a lot about like spirituality and like manifesting and like setting your intentions and like following these signs. And, when you're continuing to operate on that, like, high vibes, like you were following, like you're calling something in, and then things started happening, and like the universe put something in front of you. And it's sometimes so easy to go, yeah, but that's like a lot. It's like a lot of work, and that's kind of hard. And like what we're doing right now, we're supposed to focus on what we're doing because it's like, this is such a big step. But you guys were like, no, we're going to take the step. We're going to take the step because this is like our vision. and we're going to try to go that way. And then look at what happened. Like 4 acres turns into 88 acres. Your company is completely transformed in such a beautiful way. It was so beautiful as it started. And then it's become like this amazing thing where you're creating, holding, giving back, and like sequestering carbon and like all of these things that's just honoring the planet. And I think it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I hope that like other companies, I don't know, maybe that's been your experience, that other companies have reached out to you to ask like, what is your way? Like, how do we do this?
Yeah, we've really like created this open space to help other brands, just like, here's the roadmap, as we know it. And we always send Michonne to other companies that we love. And there's actually been a lot of other companies that are opting in and buying in acres. And it's been really cool to see, because I just feel like this isn't a competitive, like we're so used to competing.
Yeah.
Just as like women and like industry, it's like, that's our competitor. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But like, if you look at the real underlining goal, the goal is to actually wear beautiful things that are made in a beautiful way. And the only way we can do that is if everyone starts to opt in and understand the importance of it. And so for us to like hold this thing, which is also not our thing, this is an ancient indigenous way of creating clothes and food. And we're just remembering what that is. And the fact that we can do it with our clothes is so cool. And I'm so proud of what we're doing. Yeah, and it's not ours to keep, because it's just not ours.
The dresses are so filled with love. I'm such a believer in what you were saying about like what you're putting on your body and what's behind it. Like whenever I wear my dresses, I feel like floaty and full of love and joyful. And I think everything has this energetic value. And I've always felt that about your dresses. Whenever they land on my lap, I put them on, I just feel really good about myself. And to hear like the expansion that you've had and there's beautiful, pure intentions behind it, it's so evident that that's what I'm picking up on, is like just this love. And I've been perusing your personal Instagram for a couple of years now. And it is everything that I love in the world. Like it's kids in nature. And I'm sure that's kind of a throwback to the way that you were raised. And then there's these incredible retreats, and then you have vintage inspired dresses. How do you go about upkeeping that? I mean, the words that were coming to me when I was looking at those images, I'm like, oh, this is that slow living, back to nature, spiritual lifestyle. How do you interweave that with running a business? And then I'm always like, how do we ground all these beautiful earthy things and then like have to deal with like the business side of stuff, like paying bills and, of course, running a business is a whole thing. Tell me about that balance.
My teacher once said to me, and it's stuck with me ever since, he talked about this hierarchy that just like put so much in perspective for me. And I think about this a lot when I feel like things are getting a little out of control or just wild, or my nervous system is like, I need help. And he said, basically the hierarchy is this: in order to live like a truly balanced life, at the top, it's God or spirit, however you want to label that for you. Your connection to that thing that is the all, that we call the all. And for me, God just means like everything, like nature, universe, love, like it's source, like it's my source. It's outside of Christy. And then underneath God is you, myself. And then underneath that is your partnership, if you have one. And then underneath that is your children. And then underneath that is your work. And so I think about that hierarchy a lot, because if you think about it, it's like, okay, if I wake up and I give my time, however much time to source, if it's a prayer or it's a meditation, then I'm like, okay, now what do I need? Okay. And then for me, it's usually like, that's what I needed. It was just to take those 10 minutes to like reconnect to source. And then after that, it's like, you look at the partnership because the kids are looking up to you and your partner. And then you're looking up to like your mother, father, source figure. And so it just like trickles into this beautiful alignment. And I think about that a lot when I am feeling out of balance. Like, have I taken the time today to sit and meditate, or even just like journal or whatever, just take a bath and like do it, both things in the bath. And it's not always like that, but I think that I have that hierarchy and that kind of like pyramid in my head and in my heart a lot. And that helps me balance out all of the kind of life stressors that definitely just life is lifing all the time. And if I don't take that time to prioritize myself and my connection to source, then what's the point really,
Sarah, I feel like you had a day like that yesterday.
I was just thinking that as she's talking, I'm like, I know. I did have a day like that yesterday. I woke up in the morning and I felt so irritated. And I never wake up like that. Like, that is so weird and out of body for me, because I usually wake up in the morning and I'm just like, like, good morning, day. Like, I just feel so like good usually, right? And I woke up so irritated. And then I was like, I don't like this feeling. And I was like, felt really exactly what you're saying. Like, nervous system was not okay. And, I was kind of running through my morning, and then my husband looks at me because like we're in the shower, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "What? Why? Yeah, no, I'm fine." And he's like, "But really though, like, are you okay?" And I was like, "Why? Do I look tense?" And he's like, "Well, no, you are tense. You don't look tense. You're tense." And I was like, yeah, I feel not like myself. I feel overwhelmed. I feel like there's too much on my plate. I feel scattered. I feel like everything is like, we talked to this angel intuitive one time on this podcast, and she was like, for you, Sarah, like sometimes there's like all these things out in front of you and you can just like keep grabbing at them, or you can like write them down and like put them in, like you need to like put it all in front of you. And I felt so scattered with a million things yesterday and just kind of like, not in my body. And Teresa was like, you need to meditate. Like, you need to go and sit for a minute and like, and she was so right. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Christy, is like, I think having that moment of connecting with spirit and, I call it the universe and, my team of light, and just going like, wow, I'm not feeling myself right now. Like, I'm feeling really out of whack. And then taking those deep breaths and then coming back. And even if you still feel sticky, like, you know that you've at least done that and you can keep like pulling through. And it took me like to the end of the day, and I finally got to this place of like, I did acupuncture and like, hello, LA. But I did do that, and it helped me so much because he like gave me, he did a stress point, and I was like, oh my God, what is that? And he was like, that's your stress area. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I finally started to feel good. But I just like, I so appreciate what you're saying there. And I think that's something that everybody listening can really take on, is like having that little hierarchy and going, because we always say that you can't pour from an empty cup. Like Teresa says that all the time. And I think we get into these life, spirals where everything feels like I'm running behind, like all the clothes are flying everywhere and I'm like chasing after the car and the car is still going and I'm like, wait, I need to get in the car. But like, that's what I feel like life is. It's like I'm still chasing and my coffee's flying everywhere.
Those days are so hard. And it's also so hard to remind yourself to like go take the time. So to have a friend and a partner that can remind you of it is like, it's just so nice to have. Because, yeah, I can get carried away in it too. And then I'm like looking at my partner like, help me. He's like, do something. Because it's not fun for anybody. And I think that's the other thing. Is like, it's not fun for my partner, for my kids, for myself, or for my team. And we just can't hold it all, even though we think we can. It's just like, I got to give it to someone else some days.
Yeah, and be each other's emotional regulators. Like, it's okay. I used to be like, say to my husband, like, you need to regulate yourself. And then I'm like, all right, sure. If he needs to have the tools, which he does. But then also, like, a part of being in partnership and being in community with your best friends is like, there are going to be some days where someone's like running at 10% and they need help emotionally regulating or unfurling like what's going on for them. And I love that I'm a part of a community and, you know, I have these best friends that you can turn to in these moments. And it's just about reminding each other, putting the mirror up, reminding each other like, hey, it's okay. Where's your connection to spirit today? I love that. I love that so much. And so you have 2 sons. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 boys, River and Sage. River's turning.
Sage.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
We love both of those names, but Sage is a name that Teresa and I have like punted back and forth. Like, it's such a good name.
It's so Sage is my second son's middle name, and all my middle names, Rain, Sage, Lake, and Moon. I was like, I could have used them all for first names, but Sage is like the most beautiful.
He's definitely the wise sage.
Really?
He's the wise sage.
Yeah. He's like the one in our family that's also just like brave enough to feel all of his feelings at full capacity when he feels it. And I'm like, hell yeah, that is awesome. Because none of us people pleasers over here are going to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I feel like Esme and my Sage is like that. Like our second born, well, like they can feel their feelings and sometimes they're really big.
Very big.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And what was that transition like for you? You know, some people say from like maiden to mother. Like what was it like moving into your motherhood experience?
It was, I mean, gosh, not easy. I had River when I was 26, which I felt like was pretty young for LA, like for being in LA. And also just like, I was modeling full time and then we had just launched Christy Dawn, and I always thought like I was going to have kids later in life just because I really wanted to like live. Like once I got a taste of what it felt like to be on my own and like the world was so big, I was like, I want to go and travel everywhere and just like be with my partner. So when we got pregnant, I was like, what? Like, I'm not ready for this at all. And I definitely felt resistant when I first got pregnant because I was just like, I'm too young. Like, this is crazy. Like, I want to travel. And I remember my husband looked at me and was like, we're not dying. Like, you can bring the kid with us. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But yeah, I remember when River was like 2 weeks old and we went for our first walk and I was pushing the stroller. Do you guys remember that moment? Was that like a big anybody?
Totally.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I just remember that moment really being like, whoa, like I am not a maiden. Like I'm not a hot young like model. Like I'm pushing a stroller. My tummy is like loose. My tits are leaking everywhere. Like what is this? Like what is this new reality I'm in? And it was just really, it just didn't feel like the easiest transition. Where I hear for some women, it was like, I just felt so at home and it was so perfect. And like breastfeeding was really hard. My birth was 52 hours and I planned a home birth and had to go to the hospital. And basically every plan I had was just like, nope, we're going to do the opposite. But I think naturally I'm a pretty graceful person. So like I was okay. Like I was graceful enough to just make the change, but it was still shocking. Like even just birth itself, like I did not experience a traumatic birth, but the pain was so intense. I'm still floored by it, to be honest. Like,
yes,
like even just my face, my body, I just go right back into, whoa, the capacity to hold that much pain. I remember after River came out of my body, I looked at the nurse and the doctor, and they were both women. And I looked at them and I was like, we're amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and she hadn't even had babies yet. And I was like, you're amazing. Like, you don't even know how amazing you are. And I was just like, women are amazing. Like, what is this? And also just the spiritual capacity of birth.
Yes.
Is bonkers. Like, that and death, I feel like hold the most, the portal for birth and death are, I don't even know how to explain it in words, because it's not, I don't think words would do it justice, but it's just the portal. Those portals are so potent, and you're the closest, I think you're the closest to God, you're the closest to source in those moments. And I think they're shocking and they're liberating and they're beautiful and they're hard. And that's like life, right? It's like, there's no light without the dark. There's no peace without the war. It's like, I think it was just like a really big moment of turning into a mother and seeing and realizing how much we hold as women and just as humans, and the beauty and the fear and all of it.
That's the most beautiful description. I love
sure.
how you just put that. It's so true. It's so true. And first birth in particular is so wild, because obviously you haven't experienced it before, but also you've never been a mother before. You've never been a parent before.
Yeah.
So like the crack open is like, it is the most like primal, like closest to animal. Like it's the most, you really can't articulate it. And then for you, when you had your second child, was that a conscious decision? I'm ready to fold in another little soul into this family. And then what was that birth experience like? No, okay.
I was like, I am not doing that again. And that was so hard. And then, of course, we got pregnant, and I was like, oh my God, no, not this again. Like, no.
I know.
I was really resistant with both of them. And the second one was more of like, just, I have to do that again. Like,
I know.
I'm so scared.
It does hit you over the head.
I was really honest about my fear. I was like, I'm really scared. Like, whoa, to walk through that portal again is, you have to, it's like a marathon, but it's not even a marathon. You can't even compare it to a marathon.
No.
It's just like, you're preparing. Now that I know, I was like, okay, we're going in again to this.
Yeah.
And I think the blessing in knowing what to expect, at least a little inkling of what to expect, because they're very different, but was just the preparation. And like, for me, it was like really getting close with my fears and like sitting in that place and getting to be friends with them. And just like, that's all I did every day in my meditations was like, okay, you're afraid. Like, what are you afraid of? What are you feeling? Okay, hi, fear. And I was just sitting and like, just getting to be friends with my fear, because I was just, the birth for me with River was just so painful, and I wasn't ready for that. And I didn't know that we could hold that much pain, even though I've held a lot of pain in my life that's emotional, but the physical, it was just like, it kind of amplified all of it. But yeah, so with Sage, I was like, oh my God, this again. And then obviously I sat with that, and then birth was, I really talked with him too. And I asked like to do it together slowly. And I talked so much to Sage. I'm like, please, like, let's do this together. Can you come slowly? And like, can you come out or sooner? Like, not 52 hours. Like, you're so supported, and it was exactly that. Like, I dilated for 2 weeks, and there was a point where I was at home and I was like, I think I'm like 2 minutes apart. Like, should we go in? And my doula, she was like, I mean, I don't know. I was like, my body's trembling. Like, I think I should. And she's like, all right, yeah, 2 minutes. Like, let's go. And I went in and they're like, you're at a 6. Let's get you in. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited. Like,
That's
oh
so
my gosh.
awesome.
That's the best feeling,
felt
isn't
like
it?
It was such a good feeling. And I really just felt that support from the universe and from Sage. And yeah, just like, okay, we could do this. And yeah, and I pushed for like 10 minutes and he came
wow. And he came out.
And he came out with like big, beautiful eyes, smiling, you know.
Oh,
and it just felt like a really beautiful healing to the first one.
I was gonna say.
I mean, I think that I've heard that from a lot of women that that communication during pregnancy, when you're like in meditation or like that sleepy time, whatever you want to call it, that sleepy time before your nap, or like you're laying down and like having a moment, you know, that you can really visualize or like talk to your baby about your birth. And it's so awesome that that's exactly what happened. And it's such a beautiful like description of all of it. And I loved when you talked about your first birth. I loved you talking about the portal in like birth and death. And, you know, I've very much experienced that with losing my dad and being with him during that moment. And then, you know, having a baby right after that, like a few months later. And I think it does something wild to you. It like opens you up in a really different way when you experience those things. And I was just thinking as you were talking, I was like, gosh, I wish I could like see aura, because and I know I probably could if I worked on it, but like, could you imagine a woman in labor, what her aura would look like?
Yeah.
Like the light around, you know what I mean? Like
so
how
fun.
cool, right? I would be like,
and I'm sure you'll be seeing some aura.
Right?
Exactly.
It would be like
come to a mushroom trip.
Electric.
Yeah.
Come on a mushroom trip. Can I come to your birth? I really want to do psilocybin and like read your aura.
Oh my God.
I'm sure it's happening somewhere in the world, but
100%. I mean, it's just so cool.
So amazing if you could. I'm sure it's just, I bet you it's the same for death.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's a rebirth in a way. Our soul is like being reborn, but it's a different like transition, right? At least what I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like the transition in death is really different, but there's like, you know, a mix of feelings. Like if you're able to be with someone as they're leaving this world, you know, in that sort of slow way, then you see that like their body is done and their soul is ready to move on. And so you're just sort of like holding space for the soul to move on to the next place and like saying like, you're in a safe space and you're okay. And like, I love you and I'm here, but like, I'll always be here. And so watching that transition happen, it feels very childlike, very like timid and like afraid to move on, but also knowing that it's time. So at least that was my experience. And watching it unfold, I was like, wow, like it is powerful being with someone in their last like moments of life. And especially someone that you're so close to, you know, like a parent. But I just feel like it's changed me as a parent in general, just having that experience, understanding like how beautiful the moments are, everything, like, you know, being alive and being with my people and my friends and like being a mother and having my kids. And like, I could cry thinking about it, but it really changed me as a human, birth and also experiencing losing someone. And so I love that you brought that up, because it is like eyes wide open, such an amazing, wild thing that we get to experience.
I don't know. I really do find that words like do it a disservice, because it's like how do you even articulate something so big and life-changing, you know, like, and I imagine everyone has like their own version of it, but I feel like the essence of it is very simple. Like the essence, the energetic like signature of those portals feels the same. And I don't even know the right words are to explain it other than just like life-changing. And just so, I feel like I was just sitting with God for months while my mom was sick and dying. I was literally just like, and she was like, God, universe was, soul was just speaking. Like it wasn't, I could really see her for who she was finally. And there's nothing more than like death or birth to bring you into the present moment. That's what I found, is that the present moment is like whoa. And this is what I strive for in my life, is to be present. And so to sit with that gift, which sounds horrible, of watching my mother pass, was like another teaching that she left me, you know, and her ability to do it with so much grace and so much strength, and just like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to like show you how magic is coming through me in my last days so that I don't scare you. And I show you, like, it was so beautiful. The things she shared with me that she was seeing and feeling. And for us, like for my mother wound, it was really just so beautiful.
How long ago did you lose her?
It's been 2 years. Yeah. But my mother, she battled with a lot of demons, and you know, it was something that like was so hard for me as a child and a young mother. And just like, my mother was so loving when she could be. Like, I never doubted the love from my mom, but she just wasn't available because she was so sick in her own pain. And in the end, it was almost like when she got diagnosed with cancer, it was a relief, which was so hard to see. Like, she was like, okay, like, I don't have to do this anymore. Like, I don't have to wear this human suit anymore with these stories and these pains and these triggers and these traumas. And to like sit with me and just like share with me all the things that were coming up for her in her dying days, and the magic that she was experiencing, and the psychic abilities. Like, my mom was not a spiritual woman. Like, I have to tell you, I've always felt like the black sheep in my family because of these retreats and my spiritual teachers, and even just like acupuncture and eating organic food, whatever. And so when she was dying, it was like, she would talk to me about these things that I have been like practicing for so long, but she was literally being the, how do I even explain it? Like, she was being the voice of, like, I don't know how to even explain it. It's just the things she was saying. It was like, Donna would never say those things before.
Yeah.
So something was coming through her.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. It was like ultimate
channeling.
Source was like channeling through her. And it was like showing me that it is actually real. Because all the things I've studied, I'm like, I believe it. But you know, our brains want to actually see it. You know, it's like when we go to Laura Lynn Jackson's things and we're like, we believe in psychic abilities. Then you see her and you're like, oh my God, like, it's real.
Exactly.
You know, and our humanness like needs to attach to the realness of it. And so when I saw my mom dying, I was like, oh, I am a direct reflection of her. And I never knew that. And like, what a joy to finally see that I come from this like really big, beautiful spiritual being, which we all are. But we're just like polishing the stone of ourselves all the time, trying to get back to our purest, most authentic self. And in that moment, that's what I saw in my mom, was her perfect, beautiful stone of a soul.
Oh my God.
And like, I never saw that before.
Maybe Source was also gifting you with the healing to help the wound start to heal as she was transitioning.
Yeah, I love that. I felt that so much. And, you know, and then there was the human part of me that was like, felt so robbed, because I was like, really? I get it when she's dying. Like,
yeah,
now,
of course.
I get
Doesn't
it now.
that happen though so much?
You know,
I feel like that happens.
Yeah, I'm like, and then I'm like, but I'm so grateful that I got it. But like, God, I wish we could have done this like
so much sooner. Yeah.
You know, but then I'm like, I trust that I got exactly what I got in this lifetime. I really do.
Yeah.
But there are those moments for sure where I like feel bad for myself and cry in the shower. And I'm like, I wish I had a mom, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then this just like goes deeper into my journey of, you know, getting closer to like the divine mother who lives with all of us, and my mom as well. And so that's kind of been my spiritual journey lately. It's just like really sinking into that connection, because I miss my mom. So it's like, like, what is that motherly love that exists all the time for all of us? And so that's kind of been like a big deep dive since she's passed.
Oh, that so resonates so much. And you mentioned Laura Lynn Jackson, and you know that we're like big fans of hers. Do you ask your mom for signs?
I do. So when my mom was sick, I read Laura's book when my granny passed, and I had the wildest story. My granny passed, and it was like 2 weeks before my birthday. And I was in my first ayahuasca ceremony when she passed, and I kept seeing these humongous monarch butterflies like in the left side of my peripheral. The whole ceremony, the 2 nights of ceremony, the butterfly was like huge, which, you see those things, but I was like, whoa, this butterfly was really, and it was an orange one. And so when I came out of the second ceremony in the morning, my dad had called and said, Granny passed away. And I was like, okay, wow, like, whoa, this is so wild, like mourning her death. She was 98, and it was like, she had a beautiful long life. But I didn't think anything about the butterflies. And then I flew to Costa Rica for a vacation. And when we were there, these monarch butterflies kept landing on me while we were outside.
Oh my God.
The lights would flicker.
What?
And my niece.
Wow.
Yeah, my niece, she's like, maybe it's Granny. And I was like, maybe it is Granny. And so I was like, wow, okay, hi, Granny. And then we were just like playing around with it, like, hey, Granny. And then we came back from Costa Rica, and I drove to her funeral, and I listened to Laura Lynn's book. And I was like, maybe Granny's a butterfly. When I came back from the funeral, I get a letter from my granny for my birthday. It's postmarked 2 weeks early, which is weird. She never sent them that early. The day she died. And on the envelope are butterflies, monarch butterflies.
No.
Oh my God. Full body chills.
Crazy, you guys. It gets even crazier. So, and mind you, I just listened to Laura's book. So I was like, okay. And you know how she's like, you can ask for a sign. Sometimes like the sign just tells you, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And then so then I'm in the meditation room with my husband, and we're meditating. And all of a sudden, this like wave of kind of sadness comes over me. I just start crying. And I've been listening to Laura's book on the way home. And so I'm like, I'm going to ask my granny for a sign. And I was kind of nervous because I'm like, Laura's like, when you ask, be ready to receive, which we know just in general when asking for things. So I'm like crying, and Otis is like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just feeling into my granny. So I'm like quiet, and I ask Granny for a sign. All of a sudden, my phone buzzes, and it's my friend Jane Ann, who is this beautiful Vedic astrologer. She's also a seer and very much a psychic. And I haven't talked to her in months, and she messages me. Mind you, it's 10:30. She lives on the East Coast. And she said, hi, honey. She said, I just want you to know your loved ones are pinging me over here, and they're saying they love you and you're so supported. And I was like,
what?
Yeah, and I was like, okay. It gets even wilder. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, wow, Jane Ann, like you have no idea the timing of this. And then I joked, I'm like, okay, yeah, you do, obviously. And then she's like, your granny is with me, and she's asking me to send you butterfly emojis.
No,
Stop.
no.
I could show you guys the text message. I did a whole post on Instagram about this after it happened.
Wow.
Is
blown
insane.
out. I was blown out.
Wow.
Like, whoa, okay, Granny.
Have you ever told Laura this story?
No, I've tried to get in touch with her, and I went to one of her, what are they called? Like her
gallery events
It was
workshops.
Beautiful. And I'm sure so many people reach out to her, and she's like, I know,
We'll send her this podcast episode because she's on our podcast.
Oh my God, you guys, I'm so excited to listen. So when my mom got diagnosed, I was like, listen, we have to come up with our sign. And my mom was so fun. Like my mom was so funny and like amazing. And she was like, oh, I can't wait to do crazy things to you guys on the other side. And we're like, what are you going to do? And she's like, I don't know. Like, I'm definitely going to spook your dad. And I'm like, do not scare me. Like, come on. But I was like, can't we just like think of a fun, sweet sign that's not scaring any of us? And she's like, okay. And so my sister was like, what about a moth? Because I was like, it has to be something that's not like so obvious, And I was like, okay, but it's only a moth that's not near a light in the dark. Like it has to be in very odd places. And so my mom was like, a moth? Like, come on, like, can't you give me something more exotic? And we're like,
that's
yeah,
hilarious.
This is it. Yeah. And she was like, okay, I'll do the moth. And so the night that she passed, we were in the room with her, me and my sister. And in the morning, we kept her body in the house with us for like 16 hours and dressed her in her Christy Dawn yellow dress and like put her jewelry on and everything. And in the morning, when we like got out of the room and brushed our teeth, me and my sister went into the bathroom and there was a huge moth on the toothbrush.
No. What?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like immediately. And then after that, it was like the moths were everywhere. Like she was so, you could tell she was like, oh, this is so fun.
This is fun.
We had never seen moths like this. And
oh my God,
they were everywhere. Like I would be cooking dinner and one would fly onto the spatula. And you're like,
oh,
okay. And then like the boys now see them all the time. But like right after she died, there was
moths.
Oh
I know,
God.
me neither.
It's so wild. I just had a sister weekend. We just met in Paso Robles, and right when we got there was a moth on the door for 2 days the whole time.
No. Wow.
I saw your post about that because I was like, oh my God. That's why I wanted to ask you about the signs.
Everywhere. Like they dive bomb into the bath with me.
Wow.
I'll be on a photo shoot. One would land on my hand and just crawl all over me the whole time. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Okay. Like
she's communicating with you. Oh my goodness. And she's having fun with it.
Yeah, she's like, oh, you wanted it in unique places? I'll give it to you.
I know. That's almost scary too. You're like, I wake up in the morning and it's like on my pillow.
Like,
oh my God.
No, I've had that happen.
Oh my God.
Are you like, Mom, just not the face. Just not the face.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Please.
I try to take photos of it when it happens, but half the time my phone's not even around when it happens. But
oh my gosh. I love this stuff so much. I love it. And I think cultivating a spiritual life and really like leaning into this work, it like destigmatizes, I think for me, like death, like how scary death, the idea of death and dying. And since doing this work, I'm like, oh, I have a whole different perspective on that transitional part of our life that is going to happen to all of us. So that's a beautiful gift in this work. I love hearing those stories. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably and being so open about those experiences.
And thank you so much for coming on our show and for just being the like absolute light that you are, and for your beautiful company. Everybody check out Christy Dawn, ChristyDawn.com, at Christy Dawn on Instagram, and check out these beautiful hand-stamped, plant dyed from the earth, regenerative cotton, gorgeous farm to closet dresses that we're so obsessed with. And now you get to hear and like see the beautiful, loving energy behind each and every piece, which I think is just so special. As much as we talk about it on our own like platforms, it's also just great to hear from the maker herself and where this all came from. So Christy, thank you so much for being with us. We just absolutely adore you. And you guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye, Daisy.
Yeah, bye,
Christy.
Daisy.
Thank you.